This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, I have a wild man on the show with me today.
Very good.
Heck,
Very good.
yeah, that's pretty
Very
much,
good. No, I like the way you tied that in. Sure.
yeah, you know. But this wild man's name is Peter, so we call him Peter Wildman, a musician, a comedic musician right out of Toronto, one of my favorite, if not my favorite place in the entire world.
Yeah.
Welcome, Peter Wildman.
You say that about every location, I'm sure, Greg.
Actually, I've lived here in New Brunswick my entire life.
Oh,
Gonna be 51 in July, and I had, other than Prince Edward Island, I'd never traveled. And what had happened, I'd get homesick just going to Moncton or St. John, which is strange because I've gone to a few concerts there. One of your fellow Torontonians, Avril Lavigne, I've seen a couple times in concert. And anyway, what had happened is I had interviewed a Canadian actress a couple times on here who has since become a very, very awesome friend. And I'm talking about Lisa Langlois from the movie Class of 1984. And on my second time interviewing her, we got talking about travel because she had just moved back from Los Angeles back to Toronto. And she asked what was stopping me. And I went into this. I'd never flown before. I'd never blah, blah, blah. And she made me an offer I could not refuse. She invited me to assist her at a horror film convention she was doing that fall, and I couldn't say no. I was petrified at the idea of travel. But you know what? The plane didn't buy, did Porter Airlines, which I highly recommend, and it felt like a bus in the sky. I actually really dug it. And I landed on in Billy Bishop Airport on Toronto Island. I hadn't seen escalators since the mid 80s because we don't have them here anymore. And I got up top and I had my first experience with the GO trains. I met Lisa at Union Station and she gave me a little tour. She gave me a wonderful session on the subway. She taught me exactly how to use those because we don't have them here. And I just remember I we went to dinner and all the time she was asking me about the Maritimes and about New Brunswick. And the only thing going through my head is why the hell am I not homesick? Why am I not homesick? I love Toronto so much I didn't want to come back home. And I've gone every year since except for 2020 because something decided to interrupt that year. But I've gone every year since. And I always see Lisa every time I go down there. I've done a couple of the conventions with her. In fact, I'm going to do one with her this fall in Niagara Falls. And yeah, love Lisa. She's become a wonderful friend, and she's connected me with a lot of people. So I fell in love with Toronto. So I really dig where you are. What part of Toronto are you at?
I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were in Toronto.
No, I'm in Mississauga.
Well, actually,
We're Toronto adjacent.
okay. I know I have a guest that's in Mississauga.
Now there you go. It's a
Yeah,
it's very nice.
I have a magician friend, Ryan Brown, lives in Mississauga.
You never have enough magicians.
Yep. So there you go. But yeah, I know where Mississauga is, and but yeah, I love Toronto, and they listed you as Toronto based. I mean, Mississauga, I mean, come on. But I am going to show you what shirt I'm wearing today.
I see
Look at that.
this.
Look at that.
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
there you
Yes.
go. Yes.
Very good.
Yes. Red green, folks. Yes, because if Well, women don't find you handsome. She surely find you handy.
Yeah.
And you, of course, played Buzz Sherwood on that show. But before we get to Red Green and your music, I would like to get a little bit of your background and what led you to get into the industry.
Oh, um, the usual, I guess you could call it the usual route. Community theater, high school stuff. Um, I liked the stage. I liked doing that kind of thing. There wasn't a lot of high school that I was a very poor student and I wasn't athletic, but I fit into the drama crowd and sort of made a note that maybe someday I could do that for a living. After high school, I traveled for a couple of years, wound up in New Zealand for a couple of years. That was very nice. And then I came home, moved to Toronto, and bummed around to a few jobs. And then someone recommended Second City.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what Second City was, and I didn't know what improv was. So I auditioned, never auditioned before. It was quite exciting. And I got into the workshop. So for the next 2 years, I hung around Second City doing the workshops and learning about improv. And while I was there, um, it's as all good workshops, it's just a big classroom. So you network, and somebody asked me to go and see their act at another club, and got a job working at that club with that person doing improv. A few nights later, Rick and Paul showed up doing the two-hander Green and Shadow, and we started creatively hanging out. And then a couple of weeks after that, Dan Redican showed up as Poopy Dan in his lunch. That was the name of his act. And he did puppets. And the four of us then started kibitzing and trading ideas back and forth. And then we formed the Frantics and, started playing clubs and whatnot. So it was very organic, but it was a fascinating trip and remains so today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I noticed behind you in your background, you got some guitars back there. Um, is that your instrument of choice, guitar?
Yes, pretty much. I can do things on the piano. I can do a tiny bit of bass. I can play a variety of instruments as most musicians can, but with the guitar, that seems to be the one that I gravitate towards, and it's easy to travel with, and they're cheap, and yeah, it has a lot of advantages. But yeah, first choice.
Made that your first choice, like I'm going back like growing up, and because everybody's got any musician that I've interviewed, it's always got that one instrument, and I always ask, why that instrument?
Oh, well, I don't know if you can see
Hmm.
the second where, no, 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 you can't see. Anyways, on the wall is a purple guitar that I got in grade seven because my grade
Hmm.
seven teacher who played the guitar, I was quite enamored with it. So on parent teacher night, they said, Peter needs a guitar. And so I got my guitar, my first guitar in 1967.
Ah.
And still have it to this day. And that was just again I took piano lessons, but it just didn't take. But as soon as I picked up the guitar, um, and I had a ukulele before that, so I wasn't totally foreign to the concept of strumming a guitar. So it all made sense.
And of course, you got into uh, show business, and you got into, of course, I listened to I love comedy, and I was listening to some of your music over the weekend, and one of the songs that really stood out to me was one about Tim Hortons.
Oh yes,
Yep, that seems to. There's a lot of truth in that song.
yeah, there is. And we should tell folks they can go to peterwildman.com to hear a few tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm on SoundCloud as well. So either way, you'll wind up being able to listen to a lot of my music.
So I take it the Tim Hortons song is born out of experience. Did you have a couple cups of it this morning?
No, I don't drink. I don't drink Tim's. I originally wanted. I don't like Tim's coffee. I guess that's fair to say, but a lot of people do. So that's I wrote it from that perspective.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm yes, no. There's a long history of Tim's coffee, and if you want the original Tim's coffee, you go to McDonald's because they're selling the original Tim Hortons coffee now.
Actually, when I go to Tim Hortons, I like getting steeped tea. I'm a more a tea person. Yeah. And of course, you had another one I thought was so funny. Um, was uh I can't remember the name of the song, but it says, "Congratulations, you raised an idiot," or what-
Yes, the idiot song.
the idiot song. Was that aimed at somebody in particular? You don't have to give names.
No, I think it's just bad parenting.
Mm-hmm.
That for me, when kids get in trouble or they cause trouble or they attack schools or they attack teachers, I think, well, where are the parents? So I blame if your kid screws up, I blame the parents, and every parent screws up, so just own it. But that's essentially where that comes from. And quite often when I perform the song and I list off some of the behavioral patterns of an idiot, you can see audience members elbowing the person next to them. He's singing about your kid kind of deal. So that's a fun one to play. It catches a lot of people off guard, and it's a neat one to. It's fun to play, and apparently it's fun to listen to because a lot of people like it.
So what led you to do music from a comedic standpoint, I love it personally, but you don't see it a lot. Uh not as often as I would like. I would love to just go on the radio and hear comedic songs instead of some of these empty love songs that
Well,
really
you need to listen to Dr. Demento. Are you familiar with Dr.
I
Demento?
am through Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes. The Frantics. Now, how did this go? Right. Prior to the Frantics, we were in a kind of a very poorly attended club, and we had two songs in our act, just two. And when we started the Frantics, we took those two songs with us, and we played them every night, everywhere, because people laughed, and I knew 8 chords or 10 chords on the guitar.
Hmm.
So when we went to CBC, when we got our first big gig with CBC Radio, we did what anybody else did. The first episode of the radio is pretty much all your live stuff on stage that worked. So you're kind of cheating, right? You're not really writing for radio. You're just doing your live show. And in that, we ended the show with a song from our live show. And we thought, well, that's done and dusted. And then the producer from CBC Radio said, Air Force, they don't do a lot of music. And that sounded really nice at the end. Let's have a song every episode. So we went from writing 2 songs in 3 years to writing 3 songs a week. And because I had a guitar, I was deemed the guy that should play the guitar. So I was brought lyrics for blues songs and reggae songs and folk songs and rock songs. So the very steep learning curve. I wasn't keen on doing it because I just kept thinking about Zeppo Marx, and he was there was Groucho, Harpo, and Chico.
Hmm.
Everybody knows them, but there was a fourth brother, and his name was Zeppo, and he was the
Hmm.
handsome one who sang the songs. And they very quickly, for whatever reason, he didn't make the cut, and I did not want to be the musical guy. I wanted to be out on stages acting, not just standing there playing a guitar. So I wrestled with that for a couple of years. And then they also took longer to write. Um, you can early on, you'd need a better part of a day, certainly a better part of the day to write a song because I was new to it. But then once I got the hang of it, I could write a song in a couple of hours, and then I could go back to writing sketches. But that again, learning curve. It took a while to to machine my head into making songs and comedy sketches.
Yep, and we love it too. And of course, speaking of comedy, you had a very long stint on the Red Green Show as Buzz Sherwood. I got to see Steve Smith, Red Green, at the Playhouse here when back a number of years ago, and of
Is
course I
that the
remember.
theater across the street from the hotel?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yes, lovely. That's a great space.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that was very good.
yeah, I saw him there. I remember he was selling suspenders and stuff there at concession stands and stuff, and
Hmm.
I got to meet him, and he put on a wonderful show, and I always loved the Red Green Show, because it was nice and simple, and I got nothing against crass humor, but I love the fact, that he didn't have to be crass to be funny, and it was always a funny show. Him up there in the Possum Lodge, and talk about meeting him and getting involved with that show.
Oh, okay. Um, right. So Rick Green of the Frantics was in thick with Steve, and they were going year after year after year, and then I was invited to show up and be Buzz Sherwood. So drive to cottage country and spent a day or two on a dock with a plane dressed as Buzz,
Hmm.
performing our little skits with Red Green, and that went well. So the following season, he invited me to be a part of the writing team, and I was a little concerned because much of all as I watched the show and liked the show, in my head I would go, "How the hell would you write for a show like that?" Again, thinking of where I'm coming from. And I asked him about that, and he said, well, he wanted a fresh point of view. I mean, he's a very clever man. He's very, very smart, very fast. So he said, well, I don't want you to write like us. I want you to bring what you do to the show. And what I do is I usually tell stories, or at least I can create a story that this week. Now what was the one that I did? Oh yeah, this week the boys in the lodge, they want to save money on beef, so they're going to buy a cow. I'm sure you have it in New Brunswick. You can go to a butcher and say, I want to buy half a cow from you. Or you can actually buy a cow, take it to an abattoir, and say, can you chop this animal up for me, please? It's so the boys at the lodge were going to do this, but of course they couldn't bring themselves to killing the cow. I don't know how we ended it, to be quite honest. But so I like to bring in the stories that each episode sort of circles around. There's also the ones where he's sitting at his desk and he has these little heart-to-heart chats, and at the end he said, "Keep your stick on your ice because we're all in this together." Those little warm, I do those. So I brought in another element to the show, and then so that went performing and writing for, I think I did 4 years of that. And then I was offered a job with a TV show in Montreal. Um, so I jumped at that because that was a pay increase and another rung up the ladder, so to speak. So
Hmm.
sadly, I bid adieu to Red Green and moved on to greener pastures.
So that because it's unfortunate you are not listed as part of the movie that they did. So
I had a bit part in it. Maybe it got cut. I did have a day on that. The scene is I'm a night watchman. I come into the room in the dark with the flashlight. To be honest, I haven't seen the movie, so
I haven't seen it either, but I looked when I was looking up your credits and whatnot and your voice work and whatnot.
hmm.
It wasn't listed. The movie was okay.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
think you're right. It wasn't listed. So maybe I didn't make the cut. But the
Ah,
check cleared, so I'm okay. I'm okay with
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, maybe. Well, Red Green at least found you handy.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, he's a very, very funny guy. I working with the Frantics, Rick, Dan, and Paul were so very fast and
Hmm.
very funny. But Steve was just as fast, if not funny. You could tell him a joke, which he always loved a joke. So tell him a joke, and 9 times out of 10, he's figured out where it's going. So he's gonna know. He's gonna wait for you to deliver the punchline that he knows is coming, and then he comes back with two alternative endings. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
yeah. He's very very fast, but fun to be around because you're just on your toes and things are just snapping. Yeah. So, and of course, you're working with Pat McKenna, Rick Green, Gordon
Hmm.
Pinsent.
Yep.
Who else
Oh,
was
we just lost Gordon
Bob
too, not too long
Bainborough,
ago. Yeah.
and oh, just other names. Sorry, I can't remember everybody. It's been a while,
Yeah,
but
we just
it
lost.
was always fun just showing up and what are we gonna do? What are we gonna pretend? It was a
Yeah.
great show.
Oh, I'd love to get Steve on here. I've never been successful at it, but a very funny guy. You mentioned Gordon Pinsent. We just lost him not too long ago too. What a great Canadian treasure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yep. And I gotta mention another very funny Canadian musician, was Kim Mitchell. I always liked him.
Yes. Oh, and Ian Thomas. Ian Thomas was on Red Green.
Yeah.
He was fun to. We were shooting in Hamilton once,
Hmm.
and I don't know what. I think was in a bad mood. I don't know why. But then and I was sitting backstage while they were out front doing something, probably getting bigger laughs than my material was. Who knows? And I looked on one side and there's Ian Thomas, and there's Pat McKenna, and then 2 chairs over is Gordon Pinsent. And I thought, well, maybe you should just lighten up. I think you're doing just fine. If you're in this kind of company doing this kind of a show, um, it was had some really interesting moments for sure.
Absolutely. And of course, you've done voice work. You were a Mojo in the X-Men. And
Yes,
yep.
I was also Eddie Shreddy, and that's the one I'm most proud of. I was hoping that the Sanafoam sponge that I was on one gig, I thought, well, I hope this one goes, but the Sanafoam sponge, talking sponge, didn't last. But Eddie and Freddie Shreddy, they were that went a few years, and
I like that
that
name,
was a
Eddie
lot of fun.
Shreddy.
They were great. It was a great experience. I really like doing the voice work, and when I can get it, I love doing it.
Was that your favorite, Eddie Shreddy?
For a voice gig,
Yeah.
um, no, certainly that they're all good. I mean,
Hmm.
to spend a couple of hours in a booth and to craft, to record something, craft something. That sounds like a big wank, doesn't it? Yeah, you're recording a spot and you have to get the timing right. You have to get the inflection right, and you do it over and over and over and over and over. I really enjoy the process. But I did get one voice gig for Visa. And that's you always you always love to hear them say you've got a voice gig, yes, and who's it for? And if they say it's Tom's Tires in Waterloo, you go, okay. Now, so that means it's a smaller market. There's not going to be many people hearing that commercial, so the check might not be as big. So when they say you've got a booking with TD Visa, you go, ooh, that's going to be fun. So, meaning good pay, and bless their hearts, they do. So they said, oh, by the way, don't wear anything nice. You're going to get wet. And I thought, Okay, that sounds kind of strange, but okay. So I showed up in a jeans, t-shirt, whatnot, and I looked into the sound booth, and they had about 4 buckets of water, had microphones aimed at the water, and and they said, okay, so let's watch the video. We need you to put something in here. And I don't know if you remember the commercial, but it was two frogmen like in Bermuda going over a coral reef or something, and then one stops to the other and points, and they point at a man wearing a Hawaiian shirt, Hawaiian shorts, and he's doing the breaststroke underwater, like in the middle of this ocean. And he turns to the camera and says, "I dropped my visa. I dropped my visa." Meaning it fell in. He was swimming to the bottom, and the spot was, well, you don't need to swim after your card. We'll get you another one. It's a long story. I hope the payoff works. So, so they showed it to me, and they said, now what we need to do is the guy says, "I dropped my visa." It has to sound like he's underwater. Hence the buckets of water. What do you think? And I said, we don't need the water. What we can do is, "I dropped my visa." And I did the wiggly lips, and hilarious, and it worked, and it was a great gig. So there's lots of interesting, crazy work around, but I enjoy it all.
Do a little Eddie Shreddy voice right now. Oh, I hear
Oh,
it.
good, homie shreddies.
And of course, the X-Men gig, that must have been fun.
Yes, it was. They let me improvise and go off script a couple of times. There was talk of giving Mojo a series. That would have been sweet, but unfortunately, that never came to pass. But yeah, the animation, they're a lot of fun. There was another one I did called The Pigs of Pigsburg,
Mm-hmm.
and I auditioned for one of the roles, and and it didn't go well. And I thought, no, I'm not doing it well for you. And the guy said, "Yeah, no, that's okay. This is kind of difficult. Can you do a duck?" I said, what do you mean?" "Well, they have this duck that hangs around with them, and the duck's got attitude." And that got me the gig. So we did a full season of Pigs of Pigsburg, sat in the studio, and then every now and then they'd say, "Pete, the duck just fell off its bicycle." "Thank you, sit down," and the story would continue. So that was a good gig. Didn't have to read lines.
Mm-hmm. Do a little Mojo for us.
No, no,
No?
I'll hurt myself if I do Mojo.
Oh, okay. We don't want that. We don't want
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, plug your website on here so people can find you.
PeterWildman.com.
Yes, and that's where you can go to get your music and any other memorabilia that you have on hand there.
I don't sell any merch, but you can also go to thefrantics.com. Sometimes there's interesting things posted there as well.
I'm one of those few cats out there right now who still collects physical media, Like I still have CDs and stuff here. I know that's a
Yeah,
dying thing now,
yeah,
but you
yeah. No,
know,
you can't give CDs away now. When you play at a gig, you can offer it. I got a box of stuff I have to get rid of because it's what are you gonna do with it?
yeah, absolutely. So, do you have a favorite location that you've like a favorite venue you've performed at that stands out to you?
As Frantics,
Yeah, or as anything. Yeah.
we had a nice arrangement with. There's a few that I can think of.
Hmm.
One is at Talbot, I believe it's called Talbot Hall at University of Western Ontario, Western University. What are they called? Yeah, University
Hmm.
of Western Ontario. It's in
Hmm.
London,
Hmm.
Talbot Hall, and they were very good because we could roll in there, pretty much look at our calendar, and they were very flexible. Like, can we show up next month? And that's always good because so many theaters, they're always planning, for 2025 or 2026, and they're going, geez, we just want a night. We don't need a long run, but that's okay. That's how they do that business, and they're very good at it. But the Talbot was wonderful. It was about a two or 300, 300, 200 plus, as I remember it. And we could roll in there and we could try our new material. They're a university, so they're very smart and they're very up on things. We always did well in Ottawa. Again, I think it's just a well-educated, people that are in the news, making the news, understand the news. You're in the capital city, so you know what's going on. So they got political nuance, and they also like the dirty, funny stuff too. So that was a nice balance. Um, so that was always nice. We always sold well in Ottawa. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan stands out because we wound up at a theater there, and just like 5 minutes before we went on, we learned that most of the audience don't know us. We were just something the theater was giving their subscription people for free, or there was some kind of like, well, here's a troupe from Toronto. Why don't you come out and see them? And I think the ticket sales were good, or they filled the place. But you just got that feeling that for the first 10 or 15 minutes they didn't know us, and that was kind of odd because most people, they book us knowing that an audience of frantic people are going to come out and they're going to know us. So that was that was an interesting night that they didn't know us, but by the end of the night they really liked us. So
That's
every
awesome.
there's all these little venues that has a memory. Doing conventions. One of our worst was a jewelers convention at the Royal York Hotel, and it was
Oh, yeah, I've
600
been there.
500 guys, all in tuxedos, old white men, and they did not get our sense of humor at all.
Oh,
And we did 40 minutes to nothing, and that became our well, at least it wasn't a jewelers convention, one of those. But all kinds of venues, all kinds of places. You mentioned a magician earlier. We did a little comedy club in Toronto, and there was a magician there. I won't say his name because he'd be embarrassed. But he quite openly confessed that he'd drive down to Detroit to a magic store there, and he just bought magic tricks, like the guillotine that cuts the lettuce. Now
mm-hmm.
put your hand in, and he did that. He cut the lettuce, and then he took someone from the audience and put their hand in and cut their hand. And there was mad panic, and people were there was blood, and there was someone going out the door. I'll drive you to the hospital. And then they said, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the Frantics. So that was just lots of memories.
Yep. Well, that wouldn't have been my magician friend. So, so he never had that. But nonetheless, I wanted to ask what was coming up. What's up in the future for you?
Right now, I'm doing nothing this summer, and we'll see what September brings in terms of future projects and work. But right now, I'm laying low. But certainly, if anybody wants to contact me at peterwildman.com, we can talk. But
Hmm.
I'm not chasing too much right now.
Okay. Well, do you have any charities that you'd like to plug on here that you're passionate about?
No, I don't. I don't. I have my causes, and I keep them to myself because
Okay.
if you talk about your charities, then it's not charity. It's yeah. Be a blood donor.
Okay.
That's a big one that I push. Be a blood donor. Doesn't cost any money, and you save somebody's life.
Yes, and
But
if worse
thanks for
comes
asking.
if
But I'll
worse comes to worse, Red Green could use the duct tape and s- instead of stitches, because he says that stuff works on everything.
Well, we pretty much used it on everything. So yeah, that was that's good stuff. I think we got a few rolls around the house.
There you go. Well, Peter, it was wonderful having you come on here today and talk about your career and your legacy, and and reminding me how awesome it is in Toronto. Of course, you're in Mississauga, so you know what? That's awesome too, you know?
It
So
sure is. It sure is.
yeah. No, what's it like there right now? We got a beautiful clear blue sky out there in
Oh, yeah,
Fredericton
no,
right now.
we got smoked out from Alberta, and it's the last few days it's been clearing up, and
Hmm.
today it's raining. So
There you
it's
go.
so far it's been a crappy summer. So hopefully it gets better.
Yeah, our June was kind of cold because there was a lot of rainy nights here, you know, and I usually go for walks at night because, you know, there's not a lot of people around and I can think, you know, and, you know, as opposed to the day where everybody's just to and fro everywhere, you know, so yeah, but
For sure.
yeah. Well, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Need to get this right.
There you go. There you go.
Hi, this is Peter Wildman. You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python Paradise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Peter, thank you so much for giving me a very wild day today. You know,
There
this
you
has
go.
been
Get one more in. Get one more in. There you
get
go.
get one more in. Absolutely. Yes. And as Red Green says, you know, if women don't find you handsome, they'll find you handy.
That's the rumor.
That's a rumor, although I don't even know if they find me. My kitty does though. Oh, geez, over there asleep.
It's time for me to go if the cat's sleeping. See you later,
There you
Greg.
go. Take it easy. Thank you and God bless.